Hello again, students. This is the next part of your first chapter, that is sexual reproduction. Now in sexual reproduction, as I already said, that it's a process where two parents are involved or two cells need to fuse. Now here the two cells that fuse are the gametes. Now what are gametes? Gametes are two haploid cells which have set of chromosomes that are formed as a result of meiotic cell division of a reproductive or the germ cells. Now this gametes which is going to fertilize will undergo meiotic cell division, and it is formed only in the reproductive cell or in the germ cell. So in certain organism which follows a haploidic life cycle, the gametes develop as a result of mitotic cell division only. In those organisms, there is no such meiotic cell division before the fertilization occurs. Now, as soon as an organism is born, it cannot enter the reproductive stage. After the birth of any organism, whether it's a plant or an animal, it has to undergo a pre-reproductive stage. In plants, that pre-reproductive stage is known as the vegetative phase, and in animals it is known as the juvenile phase. Even organism does not have a reproductive stage for the whole life of period. After certain age, even a plant or an animal, they lose the ability to reproduce, and that period is known as the post-reproductive period. In animals, especially in the vertebrates, the reproductive stage follows two cycles. The two cycles are the Ostrich Cycle and the menstrual cycle. Here is the difference between the Ostrich Cycle and the menstrual cycle. In Ostrich Cycle, the organism follows a pattern of reproductive maturation only at certain seasons. It's a seasonal process where the gamete formation takes place. The gametes will form only at certain period of the season, whereas in menstrual cycle the gamete formation occurs monthly. Menstrual cycle is basically seen in the females, and ostrich cycle also is seen in the females. So both the cycles you will see that it happens basically in the females. Ostrich cycle is shown among the vertebrates which are non-primates, whereas menstrual cycle is seen among the primates, basically monkey, apes and human beings. Now, after the cycle period, now the whole process of sexual reproduction, again we have to study the events. Now already I have said that the sexual mode of reproduction begins after the attaining of maturity of any organism, whether it's a plant or an animal. In sexual reproduction, we all know that the cells get fused. So the process of fusion of the cells is known as fertilization. But before fertilization, the gametes or the cells that are involved in fusion has to form. So we have to know the events in the sexual reproduction also. Under these events in the sexual reproduction, you will see the three basic events, that is pre-fertilization events, fertilization and the post-fertilization. Under pre-fertilization events, you have to know about the three basic things, that is gametogenesis or the formation of the gametes, types of gametes and sexuality. Under fertilization, you have to know the two basic types, that is internal and external fertilization. Even after post-fertilization, when the cells get fused and the zygote is formed, even after that the zygote develops into a multicellular organism which is known as embryogenesis. So let's begin with the pre-fertilization period. Here we have the first thing we have to know is about gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? The development and production of the male and female germ cells required to form a mature haploid gamete. The whole process of gametogenesis results out of meiotic cell division, as I already said. But in certain organisms, The whole life cycle is completed by haploid cells. Therefore, in that case, the mature haploid gamete is formed as a result of mitotic cell division. We have different types of gametes like isogametes and heterogametes. Isogametes are those gametes which are identical in shape, structures and everything. That means the two cells that are going to fuse are exactly identical, shape and structure, which you will see in lower group of organism like algae and all. Another you have that is heterogametes. Even under heterogametes you have two types, anisogametes and oogametes. In anisogametes, the shape of the gametes differ. The female gamete is larger and the male gamete is motile and smaller in size. Whereas in oogametes condition, the female gamete no doubt is larger. It is structurally also different from the male gamete. The male gamete is motile and it is smaller than the female gamete. Now, how this gamete formation takes place? I have just said that it happens in haploid parent by mitosis, and in diploid parent they form by the process of meiosis. The cells that takes part in meiosis, that is the germ cells, are also known as myocytes. Please try to remember the terms. We also have to know about sexuality. Now, in lower organisms there is no such sexuality in the organism strains. We call it as strains. As for example, even bacteria also undergo sexual division or sexual mode of reproduction. But there is no such male and female sex organs present in bacterial cell or in algae. But in higher group of organism, you will see there is two sexes, that is male and female. Basically in plants, when both the sexes are present, it is said to be bisexual. If only one sex is present, that it is known as unisexual. Now, even in plants, if the plant flower is a bisexual flower or the plant is bisexual, sometimes two individuals are involved. If one individual is involved in the process of fertilization, we call it as monoecious. If two individuals are involved, then we call it as dioecious. So in plants, bisexual can be monoecious as well as dioecious, but unisexual always will be dioecious. That means that involves two different flower or two different individual plant. A plant can be pistillate or staminate depending upon the presence of male and female organ in the flower. Here I have given you the picture. You can identify and see which one is said to be the staminate and which one is said to be pistillate. In the figure you can see with the presence of gynoecium, that is in perfect flower, number one is actually the pistillate and the other one is the staminate because of the presence of stamens. Even in animals also we have bisexual organism and unisexual. No doubt the smaller groups are basically bisexual. In class 11 you have learned about the earthworm. In earthworm you will find both the sexes present, but they are dioecious. That means two individuals get involved in the process of fertilization. Leeches, tapeworm, these are all hermaphrodites or bisexual animals. But in higher group of animals you will find all to be unisexual. Now, the gamete, after the gamete formation, the gamete needs to be transferred. In plants, it is known as pollination. In animals, it is said to be copulation. After the transfer of the gametes, it has to fertilize. That means the male gamete and the female gamete will fuse to form the single cell, that is the zygote. Now, one interesting thing is that sometimes from the female gamete, directly one individual can develop without fertilization. That process is known as parthenogenesis. This you will learn again further in details in further classes. Now, under fertilization, next step after the gamete has been transformed, the gametes will undergo fertilization or fusion. The fusion of gametes can be external, that means outside the body of the organisms, or internal, that means inside the body of the organism. So, even in case of internal fertilization, the ovum or the zygote development takes place inside the body of the female, whereas in external, no doubt, it occurs outside the body of both male and female. After fertilization, the zygote formation takes place. That is what comes under the post-fertilization period. The zygote, after zygote formation, if the zygote is a diploid, of course the zygote will be diploid because it occurs as a result of fusion of two cells. Now this zygote, if it has to follow a diploidic life cycle, then it will undergo mitosis, enter the embryonic stage. Through cell division, it will form an individual. But if it has to follow a haploidic life cycle, then the zygote will first undergo meiotic cell division, then will form a haploid spore, and finally a new individual. This development of individual from the zygote is known as embryogenesis. From one single zygote stage to a multicellular cell stage through any type of cell division, whether meiosis or mitosis, is known as embryogenesis. Under embryogenesis, you have two development, that is internal development and external development. In case of internal development, we call it as the viviparous, those organisms which give birth to the young ones after the development of the individual inside the mother's body. Whereas external development is those organisms which will lay eggs. That means the egg will get out from the body of the mother. After that, inside the egg, the organism will develop. That means the embryonic development will take place, and later on, the egg will burst and give rise to a young one. So you will have the viviparous animals like the higher organisms, and oviparous are the egg-laying animals like birds, platypus, and so on. Even mammals, egg-laying mammals are there like platypus. Even there are many viviparous animals other than the primates. So that was all about the sexual mode of reproduction in the second chapter. This is an assignment again given. Hope you are clearing out all the assignments. This is another assignment for you. Just try to go through these questions. Similar questions might be asked in your board exam. So just prepare the questions.